Hello and welcome to Byju's IAS. Let's get started and look into the first article. The first article says GSLV F10 fails to put satellite into orbit. There are about 3 articles in the Hindu today. Let's take them together and discuss as one single issue. When we look into this article, it has 3 compartments. One, it speaks about the launch vehicle. Second, it speaks about the satellite. And third is the failure to put this satellite into the orbit. First, let us understand what is this launch vehicle. We have the geosynchronous satellite launch vehicle called as GSLV F10. What is it? It is a launch vehicle which will carry the spacecraft into the space. India has 2 operational launchers. One is called the PSLV, the other is called the GSLV. So what is this? This is nothing but a launch vehicle which will take the spacecraft, carry the spacecraft into the space and put them in the orbit. That is what is called as the launch vehicle. Then we have the ESO3 mission. This happens to be a satellite. What is the satellite? This is an Earth observation satellite. If this was launched, it would have given India the capability of monitoring all the disaster management issues. Let's say the flooding issue or the cyclone issue. All of these could have been monitored by this EOS-03 satellite. So basically, the satellite had the capability to look into the entire country 3 to 4 times in a day, sending all the critical information to the database and ultimately give us all the environmental changes to different agencies that are spread around the country. So the first is the launch vehicle, which is the geosynchronous satellite launch vehicle. Second is the EOS-03 Earth observation satellite, where it will monitor in real time all the natural disasters like the flood and the cyclones. What happened in the present situation? This launch vehicle GSLV F10 was to put this satellite into the orbit, but unfortunately this mission has become unsuccessful. Why has it become unsuccessful? That is because in the third stage there was a deviation from its scheduled trajectory. Let us try and understand what was the main problem and why it became an unsuccessful mission. When it comes to the rockets, a rocket typically has 2 or more stages. There is the first stage, there is a second stage, there is a third stage, so on and so forth. So basically, when a rocket is launched, it goes against the Earth's gravitational pull, puts the satellite into the orbit so that it is able to perform all those functionaries as desired by that organization. In the present situation, the GSLV F10 was to carry the Earth observation satellite, but unfortunately it deviated from the scheduled trajectory. When we speak about the GSLV F10, it is a multi-state engine, which means we have the first stage, we have the second stage, we also have the third stage as well. The first stage is basically making use of the solid fuel. The second stage is making use of the liquid fuel. The third stage is making use of the cryogenic engine. Cryogenic engine is fueled by the liquid hydrogen as well as by liquid oxygen. Why did this mission fail? That is because the first stage was successful, the second stage detachment was also successful, but in the present situation, the third stage of the cryogenic engine did not work effectively and failed to ignite. Since it failed to ignite, there wasn't enough power for the rocket, and as a result, it had to fall off and ultimately it fell somewhere in the Andaman Sea. This leads to a question: what would be the impact because of this unsuccessful launch on the future missions? ISRO is currently planning to come up with multiple missions. One of the missions is Aditya L1. What is this Aditya L1? This will study about the sun. Then we have Gaganyaan as well. We also have Chandrayaan mission as well. What will ISRO face going forward? Because this attempt was an unsuccessful one, it will face a lot of stress and tension because it will be in an apprehensive position what could be the success rate in the near future. As of now, in the past, ISRO has seen some failures as well. It had added pressure on ISRO as well. So in the near future, the stress on ISRO scientists will double because of this unsuccessful attempt. Added to this, there might also be delay in other programs as well. As we have discussed, there is Aditya L1, there is Chandrayaan as well, there is Gaganyaan as well. Because there is a failure, they will have to now start checking whether this particular mission or some of the parts of the engine or a specific complexity with respect to the cryogenic engine, is it perfect or not. So this may ultimately mean that there could be a delay when it comes to the execution as well. And finally, we also are collaborating with one of the important scientific missions with NASA as well, and that scientific mission is called as NISAR. So this program of NISAR, which was scheduled to be conducted and launched in the year 2023, may also see a setback because the launch vehicle that will be used is the GSLV, because the cryogenic stage is complex in itself and it has to be successful. If ISRO has led this attempt to a failure, it will be much more conscious in launching the collaboration with NASA as well. So what is the major problem? The major problem will be all these projects that will be coming forward will have an execution delay when it comes to the implementation. So what is the way forward? According to this article, it goes on to say that we have had ISRO, which has had a wonderful success in the past. It has made the country great as well. It has made the country put on the global map as well. We have had successful accomplishments where multiple other countries are giving us projects. We are able to economically develop as well, and India is one of those countries which also has a sway when it comes to the space technology. But in spite of these successes that India has seen, in case there is any failure in such a question, ISRO will have to be accountable, says this article. So it is not only about the success, there will be failures, and failures are the stepping stone for success. But then if there are failures, because there is a lot of investments that are made, ISRO will also have to be held accountable, and it should also say what exactly is gone wrong in the present situation, is what is this article all about. So basically, the organization, as it embraces the limelight, it also in the future should be opening itself to the public gaze, says this article. It is this that we have to understand in reference to this article. Now let's look into the next article. This article here is speaking about Kinnur landslip. Where did it occur? It happened in the state of Himachal Pradesh. What happened? There was a landslip, as a result of which about 14 people lost their lives. So this article here is speaking about the landslide which happened in Himachal Pradesh in the National Highway 5. So what is the important point from the preliminary examination point of view? Where is this National Highway 5? Which are the places it connects? Which are the states it passes through? So you have to do this and put it on the comment section, because this can be very important from the preliminary examination point of view. Now, what are we going to discuss? We are going to discuss about the landslides. What exactly happens in the state of Himachal Pradesh? There are two ways that we have to look at. One is the natural cause. The other is the man-made causes. What are these natural causes? When we look into the state of Himachal Pradesh, where is it located? It is located in the Himalayan region. So what happens? From the basics of geography, we know for the fact that we have the Indian plate, we also have the Eurasian plate as well. So what happens? The Indian plate goes and hits the European plate, as a result of which there can be tectonic activity in this region. This might result in seismic activity in this region. As a result, what we see is a large scale landslides in this region. One, because there is this Indian plate hitting the European plate, there is a lot of seismic activity. Because of this earthquakes and seismic activity, it might result in landslides where in the Himalayan region. Since Himachal Pradesh is part of this region, what we can see is that there are large scale landslides in this region. Added to this, there are flash floods that might happen. Added to this, there might be excessive rainfall as well. These rainfall can also be the resultant of climate change as well. This ultimately means because the climatic conditions have enforced these landslides, and because the Himalayan region is steep in itself, this can also result in the landslides in this region. Apart from this, there are also man-made causes as well. What are these man-made causes? These are the anthropogenic causes. These are the human-induced causes. Let us try and understand each of these factors. The region of Himalayas is also known for tourism. So if this tourism is sustainable, this will be good enough, but this is not happening in this region. region. So what is happening? We have to construct roads. This is part of the infrastructural program. So what do? We carve the mountains, we make those roads within these mountains, and as a result, whenever there is excessive rainfall, the mud, the debris, and all of which falls on the road, and ultimately people are killed during this tragic event. In the present situation, the mud, the debris, in fact huge stones fell on the state corporation bus as well, leading to loss of lives in this region. So what are we doing here? There is excessive tourism that is taking place in this region. This is unfortunately not in a sustainable basis. We are constructing infrastructural projects, carving out roads in this region, leading to this particular development, and as a result what we are witnessing is the landslide, because the land is not able to hold on to it, because there are steep slopes. Ultimately it is the people who are the major sufferers. Added to this, what we require is the power. For the power, what are we doing? We are constructing dams. For dams, what we have to do is we build huge infrastructural network, and this ultimately means there are more hydropower projects in this region. In fact, there was an article in the past as well which had critically analyzed that Himalayan region should not have much of hydropower generation, but in spite of these papers presented by multiple states, there continues to be development of the hydropower. As a result, whenever there is construction of dams and hydropower, this also means the regions in and around will be completely delicate and feeble as well, leading to the loss of people whenever there is rainfall or seismic activity. So from the mega road expansion projects in the name of national security, to the cascading hydropower projects, from the unplanned expansion of the tourism projects, this state of Himachal Pradesh had ignored the warnings in the past, and unfortunately this region has the fragile ecology, leading to the landslides in the present situation. So if we go back and look into the landslide hazard zonation map of India, it says that about 70% of the state is in the high risk area, about 14% of the state is marked in the severe and very high risk area, and at the same time, because of the geological activity and which is active in this region, it continues to haunt Himachal Pradesh. So what are we facing here? We are facing both the issues of natural disaster as well as the man-made disaster. What are the other issues faced in the region of Himachal Pradesh? The environmental report, in fact multiple reports in India have said that there is excessive temperature that is happening in the Himalayan belt. We did discuss recently in the IPCC report as well. Before that, we did also discuss about the Ladakh region as well. So what we are witnessing is excessive increase in the temperature in the region of Himachal Pradesh, and as a result of this, we are seeing warming rate of Shimla which is higher during the 91 and the 2002, and you compare the same with the industrial revolution era, what we are witnessed is an increase of the temperature. So the first major problem is excessive temperature increase in this region. Added to it, because of the excessive temperature, we had also discussed in the IPCC report that there could be issue in the rainfall. Added to this, there could be also issue with the seasonal snowfall in the region as well, and ultimately this will result in economic problems to the people in this region. So the quality of apples that are present in this region are fabulous in nature, but because there is a climate change that is induced, the quality of apples have also deteriorated. One, because of the increasing temperature, and because of the less rainfall, say some of the environmental reports. Added to this, because the regions are increasing in temperature, what we also see is in those regions where the apples are grown, what we currently witness is the growth of the vegetables as well. So when it comes to the apple, it requires a temperature, but this region has an exponential increase of the temperature, which means that those regions where originally apples were being cultivated are now being shifted to a higher altitudes, and as a result vegetables are grown in these regions where earlier apples were grown. In order to overcome all these issues, what should we do? We should have a much better warning system. We should not be playing with the nature, and at the same time we should be forecasting all these warning system in advance. added to this, since there is the hit of the Himalayan plate with the Eurasian plate, we also have to coordinate with countries like Nepal. We also have to coordinate with countries like China and get all the information. So we require inter-country coordination as well. So more the information, more dissemination of information between the countries, that will also help in bringing down these disadvantages. And as we have discussed, there is a large scale tourism project that are going on, and we are increasing the hydropower projects as well. This has to be cut down going forward. So there is a wide support that is given by the local communities. They do want the tourism as well, but this has to be sustainable. So going forward, sustainable development along with respect to the environment is the key, says this article. It is this that we have to understand in reference to this article. Now let's look into the next article. This article says Parliament is abdicating its oversight role. What does this article speak about? It is speaking about the effective functioning of the Parliament, where we have the separation of powers in the form of legislature and executive, where the legislature is supposed to question the executive is not happening in the present situation, and as a result Parliament is not able to keep up to its responsibility, says the author. Let us try and understand what is the author's viewpoint in the present situation. Both the houses of the Parliament were adjourned sine die, bringing an end to the monsoon session, and as a result all the key discussions that was supposed to happen in the Parliament, one was in reference to the Pegasus, second in reference to the COVID-19 response, third in reference to the Chinese incursion into the Ladakh, the economic situation that is prevailing in the country, and other important sections and problems of the country were unfortunately not discussed, says the author. When we look into the statistics, the Lok Sabha worked for just 19% of its originally scheduled time, and the Rajya Sabha for 26%. The government pushed through about 20 bills during this period, mostly without any discussion, and of the 18 bills passed by the Lok Sabha, only one saw discussion over 15 minutes, while the Rajya Sabha crossed this low bar for most bills. Only two bills were discussed for over an hour. In 15 of these bills, not even one member of the Lok Sabha spoke. Each bill was passed after a short statement by the respective minister. The Lok Sabha proceedings show one bill, the Scheduled Tribes Order Amendment, as being discussed for 10 minutes, within which 7 members spoke. Two ministers intervened and the minister replied. And in the period of the 15th Lok Sabha, 18% of the bills were passed within the same session. This rose to 33% in the 16th Lok Sabha, and it is at 70% halfway through the current parliament, are some of the key statistics the author is giving. So what is that we have to understand here? When it comes to the parliament, parliament is the temple of democracy. What exactly happens? We have the elected representatives. We vote for these elected representatives. These elected representatives go to the parliament. They voice the concern of the people in all the issues that the country is facing. What we have is the members of the parliament, the legislatures, who will question the executive. But in the present situation, the executive is held unaccountable, says the author. Because they are held unaccountable, the parliament is not able to function at its full strength. That is why the executive is not accountable, says the author. Whenever there is debates and deliberations and discussions, what we have is the members of the parliament question the government. They may ask what is the problem with the government, what are the responses of the government, what is the government accountable to, what is the policy initiative that the government is planning to come up with. So debates in general are an opportunity given to the members of the parliament to discuss the government policies, propose new laws, and speak about current issues. It allows the members of the parliament to voice all the concerns and interests about their constituency. But in the present situation, most of the bills that are passed in the parliament have happened without any discussion. Apart from this, most of the bills will have to go to the parliamentary committee. These parliamentary committees will have people from different political parties. These political parties will also engage experts as well. These experts will be domainal experts. So when a draft is being drafted with respect to a particular legislation, we will have the domainal experts. If it is about cybersecurity, we will have the cybersecurity experts. If it is about financials, we will have the financial expert. If it is about agriculture, we will have experts from the agricultural domain. So when a bill is being drafted by the government, it has to be sent to the parliamentary committee. So we will have different representations of political parties and the experts. But in most of the cases, the government is just pushing these bills and it is not going to the parliamentary committee. So unfortunately, the discussions, the deliberations and all the debates that was supposed to have taken, the viewpoints that was supposed to have taken from the parliament is not happening, says the author. Even in the past, when bills were introduced, as it went up to the parliamentary committees, there were viewpoints that were taken from the experts and suitable changes were also introduced in the bills as well. That is also not happening in the present situation. And even if the bills are passed, they are passed within a few days of the introduction, not giving space for the critical analysis of the sections of the bill as well. So some of the crucial bills which will have large scale ramifications, one in terms of the financial sector, the other in terms of the farming sector, have all been passed in a fast manner, in a haphazard manner, which means the legislature is not able to keep a check on the executive and the parliament is not working in an effective manner, says the author. So what we require is a course correction according to which the legislature will have to keep questioning the executive, and at the same time the executive will have to give time to the legislature. They have to answer the calls of the legislature. They have to send the bills to the parliamentary committee and they have to put it on the public forums. The viewpoints have to be taken and ultimately passed, says this article. So the question R, which was hardly worked, the scrutiny by the committees have hardly worked, which is where we have to initiate more debates in the Rajya Sabha and in the Lok Sabha on the policy issues, and the government has to respect the viewpoints of the opposition, says this article. So basically, the parliament will have its 70th anniversary next year. So the parliament will have to ensure that all the value systems as originally envisaged under the principles of the parliament have to be respected, says the author. It is this that we have to understand in reference to this article. Now let's look into the next article. This article says Kabul offers to share power. In the last 1 week, when we have discussed about the Afghanistan issue, one thing that is quite prominent is Taliban is increasing its spread in Afghanistan. Of late, Taliban has also seized the strategic Afghan city of Ghazni, which is just 150 kilometers from the capital Kabul. It is a major highway which connects Kandahar, which is one of the important cities, which happens to be the second Afghan largest city. So with the capture of the Ghazni city, the Taliban is now holding control both to the north of Kabul and also to the south of Kabul, which means, according to some of the political thinkers in the United States of America, in the next 60 to 90 days, they might also capture Kabul if suitable actions is not initiated by the government forces, says this article. So basically, because the Taliban is increasing its fold in Afghanistan, we have the government authorities in Kabul who have said that they would want to give offers of power sharing with Taliban because they do not want any violence, because they want a complete halt of this violence, end the violence. They have spoken to the Taliban leaders who are currently in Qatar to end this fighting so that they can accomplish a power sharing deal between Taliban as well as the government authorities. So as security forces are not able to hold on to many other places in Afghanistan and Taliban is increasing its hold in multiple cities in Afghanistan, the security forces unable to control them, which is why we have the government authorities who have spoken to the Taliban leaders to have a power sharing deal so that the violence is ultimately reduced. Also remember, there are some important cities which have been captured by Taliban. This can also be important from the preliminary examination point of view. So we have Saripul, we have Shebergan, we have Aibak, we have Kunj, Talukan, we have Faizabad, we have Pulki Kamri, Ghazni, Kandahar, Lashkar Gah as well as Farah. These are some of the important cities which have been in use and can be prospectively asked in your preliminary examination. Now let's look into the mains practice question. Illustrate with example how ISRO's failure to launch EOS 3 satellite will have its impact on the upcoming missions. Next question, landslips in Himachal Pradesh point to the need for a new developmental paradigm analyze. So please write all your answers on the comment section. Peer review, do give positive feedback on your friends' answers. So this is it for today. Thank you for watching. All the best.